No, I was looking
That
in my
is smart.
closet. I thought, I
You were looking.
tonight. I haven't worn that since the last time it snowed in South
Next
City.
time I'm gonna get some, right? So I need to like.
Everyone, I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, December 6, 2023 SFO Airport Community Roundtable at 7:10 p.m. We are meeting in a hybrid session at the David Chakudi Community Room in Millbrae and remotely via Zoom. Joining us today are staff to the Roundtable, Kathleen Wentworth, Roundtable Coordinator, Maria Gonzalez, Planning Department serving as Roundtable Clerk for tonight, and Angela Montez, Planning Commission Secretary, assisting for tonight as well. And sitting here with us is Jean Reindell, Aviation Technical Consultant from HMMH. And we have online with us on Zoom, Jason Studdard, HMMH Airspace Analyst. Ms. Wentworth, good evening, and would you tell us other participants we should be recognized?
Yes, I believe you have in the audience Nupur Singha from the, consultant at, Director of Planning and Environmental Affairs at San Francisco Airport. I don't know who else is in the audience since I'm working remotely today, but I can tell you that other people who are with us on Zoom this evening include Fabiola Garcia, who is the Deputy Regional Administrator for the Western Region of the FAA. We also have with us Jason Stoddard of HMMH, who will be participating in the agenda as we go forward. We also have available with us is Lisa Eozaza in the County of San Mateo. She's the Deputy Director of Planning and Building for the County of San Mateo.
Okay.
Also from the FAA is Moifer Chin. We're glad to see you. We thought you wouldn't be with us by today, so that's great. And we also have with us via Zoom Paul Hanna, who most of you know as the SFO consultant and the Chief Airspace and Flight Operations Engineer at SFO. I'm sure I've missed a few people. Can someone else who's in the audience and can see the audience chime in?
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. I think you covered it. We have Bert Ganong with us, you mentioned, and we also have David Ong.
Yeah.
Bert, would you please go ahead and introduce your team?
So Kathleen, we have Kevin Cohn, who's with our financial office. We have Annalise Kang with the noise office, Anthony Carcanetti with the noise office, David Ong with the noise office, and we have Loretta Fries with our noise installation program.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As a reminder, tonight's meeting will have hybrid access with members attending in person and the public welcome to attend in person or remotely. For those attending remotely, we continue to use the enhanced Zoom features. We will periodically screen share the names of the attendees. The list of names will display the name entered by each person when signing into the Zoom meeting. We will now move on to roll call. I have been advised that member Cecilia Taylor has informed this board that she wants to participate remotely in today's meeting pursuant to the provisions of AB 2449. Specifically, Member Taylor has indicated that there is just cause for her to participate remotely as she has cold, which could be contagious. Member Taylor, could I ask, I don't know if she is with us, first of all, Kathleen, is Member Taylor with us?
I am not seeing her with us. I communicated with her earlier in the day, so perhaps we could skip over that part, and we're sending a message to her right now to see if she's well enough to even sign on. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. If she does join us, we'll go ahead and address AB 2449 compliance as needed. With that, then, Kathleen, I'm going to turn it over to you for roll call, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors. No response. City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office. No response. City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Here, Doug Yeakel.
San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. No response. I understand that Supervisor Pine is ill. CCAC Airport Land Use Commission.
I'm here.
Hello, Carol.
Carol
We've got
Ford.
you present. Thank you, Carol Ford. Town of Atherton, Diana, Stacy Mills Holland, the member is not attending, and I don't know if her alternate was able to attend. That's Diana Hawkins, Manalian. Atherton, no response. City of Belmont? No response. City of Brisbane?
Terry O'Connell.
Thank you. City of Burlingame? No response. Town of Colma? No response. City of Daly City?
Pamela DiGiovanni, present.
Thank you, present. City of East Palo Alto?
Antonio Lopez, present.
Mr. Lopez, thank you. City of Foster City?
Sam Hindi, present.
Thank you. City of Half Moon Bay? No response. Town of Hillsborough? No response. Mr. Royce is at a council member event and not expected. City of Menlo Park? No response. City of Millbrae?
Ann Schneider, present.
Thank you, Ms. Schneider. City of Pacifica?
Christine Bowles, present.
Thank you. Town of Portola Valley?
Judith Haskell, present.
Thank you. City of Redwood City? City of Redwood City, no response, but expected. City of San Bruno? No response. City of San Carlos? City of San Carlos, no response, but expected. City of San Mateo? No response. City of South San Francisco?
Mark Adiego, present.
Thank you. Town of Woodside?
Paul Gold, present.
Thank you. I will try to count carefully. I show 11 members, Mr. Chair, so needing 13 for quorum. We've not yet met quorum.
Okay.
We have expectations of 2 or 3 more people participating.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. I heard that there has been quite some traffic on the 101 coming up, so perhaps we could have a couple more members join us as we go into the meeting. At this point, I could go ahead and proceed with items that do not need quorum. So let me go ahead and get started by acknowledging that we are on the unceded ancestor homeland of the Hermitage Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewardess of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Hermitage Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for the people who reside in their traditional territories. As guests, I recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. I wish to pay my respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Hermitage community, past, present, and future, and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. Thank you very much for indulging me. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Staff will note any written comments and allow members of the public to speak. Please note that SFO Roundtable meetings are limited public forum, and all public comments must relate to something that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. If comments do not relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, I will stop the comment and move on to the next speaker. At this point, Ms. Gonzalez, would you please share the list of attendees while you advise the public how they may participate during public comment? Thank you.
Chair, I have one. This is from
Okay, so we do have here in the room with us Mr. Womble. Please come on in. And I think, what is it? We have 3 minutes or 2 minutes? I forgot. 3? 2 minutes.
Microphone's hot.
Good evening, Mr. Womble. Welcome, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name's Charlie Wambeck. I'm from San Francisco, and I used to attend these meetings a lot before COVID, and this is the first time since. So I just wanted to say that even though I still hear more planes coming over my house now than I ever heard for the first 30 years that I lived there, it's gotten a lot better. So I think it's the first time I've ever said anything like that here. And they don't come over 24 hours a day, every 3 minutes anymore. Once in a while we get a lot, but they're still noisy. They still drop a lot of pollution as far as I'm concerned. And, but I appreciate that they're not coming over all the time anymore.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else in the room from the public? I don't see none. Ms. Gonzalez, do we have anyone on Zoom?
We have one chair. We have Mark Shaw in Zoom.
Okay, Mr. Shaw, good evening. Are you able to allow him to?
I think I can speak now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Mr. Shaw.
thank you. I only have one request. It looks like the regular agenda item only has one item on it. It's pretty important to those of us in the Mid-Peninsula who are not members, and I was wondering if, given that, you might extend the speaking time to 3 minutes from 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll consider that. Do you have anything now that you would like to talk about, to use the time, or? you're
No,
talking about
no, that's
just the
all
item
I
on the
have for now.
agenda? Understood. Okay,
that's
thank
all.
you. Okay, well, we have 2 members joined us. Belmont, good. Hi. Redwood City are with us, so we do have a quorum. Kathleen?
So I understand that you had Redwood City, Miss Eakin is here, and who else was here? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Pernita from San Carlos.
San Carlos.
I'm sorry.
Pernita from San Carlos.
Can we bring her over to the mic?
Sorry, Chair.
That's okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Ah, great.
I see, I see.
I see. I see the city of San Carlos, I believe, was walking in.
And Kaya from Redwood City.
Okay. So we
Okay.
have Redwood City and Pranita from San Carlos. Excellent.
Okay, wonderful.
So we do have 13 quorum, yes.
All right. Anybody else, Ms. Gonzalez, on Zoom that would like to speak? We don't have anyone. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And moving on to the next item, which I will be considering setting the agenda and taking action on the consent agenda items. Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on items 1, 2, or 3? Nobody. I don't see anyone in the room. No one turned in any speaker slip. With that, I'm looking to entertain a motion to set the agenda and accept the item on the consent.
I'll make a motion to set the agenda and approve the consent items. Second?
Thank you. Got a motion by Member O'Connell, seconded by Member DiGiovanni, and we don't have anyone online, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on, next item on the agenda is an action item. Item number 4, adopt the technical working group recommendation to support the continued processing of SFO ground-based augmentation system GBAS Group 2A innovative procedures to include GLS Cat 28R ARCHI, GLAS Category 2 28 Right EDDYY, GLS Cat 2 19L UPEND, GLS SB19L COGGR, GLS DB128R down the bay, and GLS OW228R EDDYY. In your packet, you have several documents regarding this item. I trust you had the opportunity to read them. They are listed on page 28. There's a PowerPoint from Mr. Paul Hanna, SFO Consultant, Chief Airspace and Flight Operation Engineer. And on page 51, there's a memo from Jason Stoddard, Airspace Analyst from HMMH Consultant to the SFO Roundtable. And on page 54, there's a PowerPoint from HMMH. This item was discussed at the last technical working group meeting on November 15, during which we received a presentation on the Group 2A GBAS procedure and recommended that the full roundtable support continued processing of SFO ground-based augmentation system, Group 2A innovative procedures, to include, like I stated in the beginning, there are 3 groups here in these procedures: GLS CAT 228R ARCHI, GLAS CAT 228R EDDYY, GLS CAT 219L UPEND. All those 3 procedures only change the lowest altitude to which the pilot can descend in the last very few minutes of the flight before needing to see the runway. They do not change the flight path or altitude of the approaches. And then you have GLS SB19L COGGR. This procedure affects the East Bay, and my understanding that the GBAS team will be talking to the East Bay in early December about this. And then the last 2, GLS DB128R and down the bay, and GLS OW228R EDDYY, both of those were original roundtable concepts submitted to the GBAS team back in the fall of 2022. So what we're going to do is we're going to have questions from the roundtable first to the consultant and to the SFO team, the GBAS team. And then I will open it up for public comment, and then we'll come back for us for discussion and take action. Sounds good? All right, with that, I'm going to open the floor for the roundtable members for any questions that they have. With us is Paul Hanna and Jason Stoddard. So they both are readily available to answer any questions you have. And again, the material is in your packet, page 28, PowerPoint, and then 51 and 54 is a memo from Jason Stoddard, HMMH. Any questions from the roundtable members to either Mr. Hanna or Mr. Stoddard? Yes, Member Schneider.
This is going to sound way outside. I have been swimming a lot at prime time, which is on Rollins Road, and it's a little bit farther south than runway 28, and I'm hearing an incredible amount of arrival noise, I think from reverse, I just lost my terminology, on reverse thrust. Would GBAS change the speed flights are coming in so that maybe they don't have to hit reverse thrust as much? Burlingame is putting a lot of new residential properties on Rollins Road, in fact, right across the street from prime time, and it's incredibly loud. So I'm just curious, because we were out there actually listening, we were looking at the park in Millbrae and listening to just how much noise comes off reverse thrust.
Okay.
And we've never really talked about reverse thrust here.
Let me ask Mr. Hanna if he has anything to say about this at this moment.
So it's a great question. I do have a couple of thoughts to share just right away. And I think the answer is there are 3 phases of the GBAS operations at San Francisco that we're anticipating that might affect the reverse thrust usage of aircraft. So there's the short-term phase in what you're experiencing right now, where we just have overlaid GLS procedures, and even some of these innovative Group 1 procedures that are coming up next year. We would not expect the usage of reverse thrust to change in any significant way for that period of time. There's a second phase that's coming up that's independent from the innovative procedures we're talking about, where our team is working with the FAA to allow pilots and aircraft to use GLS procedures and use the autopilot to touchdown with the current procedures that are out there. So right now, Even though the GBAS and GLS procedures can guide an aircraft right to the runway, the FAA is only allowing pilots to use it to 200 feet above the runway, and then they have to fly manually the rest of the way in. When we get to that phase of the project where the aircraft are allowed to continue using that precision guidance all the way to touchdown, it's possible that that's the first point at which there could be a reduction in reverse thrust usage, just because the aircraft and the pilot is very precisely touching down at kind of the same spot over and over on the runway, and that might reduce the thrust the use of reverse thrust in that area. There's a third phase, much later, not related to the innovative procedures we're talking about here tonight, where we are looking at opportunities for things like, we've called it a virtually displaced threshold, which is using the GBAS to create a second aiming point on the runway. This is like group 2B and 3. This is many, many years from now. It's not near term. But that is another opportunity to at least change the location of where reverse thrust might be applied to a little bit further into the airport and away from the location that you just pointed out. So just to summarize, in the short term, we don't expect any change to reverse thrust usage, unfortunately. In that second phase, where the FAA and our air carriers are working together to allow pilots to fly autopilot to touchdown with the current procedures, there may be a small change that could result in a reduction. And then in the longer term, we're going to be looking at those opportunities to move the touchdown points further into the airport that might have that capability. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just something new to put on our plate.
Sure. Okay, wonderful. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we could come back for you anyway, if anybody think about something during the discussion. Let me, at this point, go to public comments. Anyone in the room would like to comment on this item? Seeing none, Ms. Gonzalez, is there anyone online? How many?
Chair, we have two.
Two people, okay. Let's take the first person, and if you don't mind, that's what actually I'm looking for, is tell the public, members of the public who would like to join us to make a comment, how to do so on Zoom.
Mary Jo.
Okay, let me do this before we get Mary Jo. For those attending the meeting in Zoom via video conference, we will use the raise hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the general public comments period, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raise hand feature to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Yes. When you hear your name called, you will be prompted to unmute your microphone and inform you that you may begin speaking. You will have 2 minutes. Thank you. And now, who is the first speaker?
I have Mary Jo from Fremont.
Mary Jo Fremont. Welcome, Ms. Fremont. Good evening.
Good evening. So, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
OW2 has higher flap settings and a new speed restriction at side-by in Palo Alto. This means that planes flying OW2 may use more speed brakes over there, which means more noise. There is already a speed brake problem over Palo Alto. We don't need to make it worse or even create a new problem. Per the noise modeling, OW2 will decrease noise at side-by by only 0.1 to 0.7 dB, not perceptible by humans. The noise model is not that precise. The error bar is 3 to 5 dBs, and the model relies on ideal theoretical descents, which are very different from actual descents. OW2 could create more noise over Palo Alto. SFO should check that before submitting OW2 to the FAA. SFO could ask TRACON to run tests on a dozen or so surfer flights. SFO requests tests from TRACON regularly. They just did it on missed approaches. TRACON would vector some nighttime flights off surfer to make them fly like OW2 over Los Altos and Palo Alto. And data analysis will be straightforward. SFO can identify the normal surfer flights, and they will know from TRACON the OW2 flights. There is already a temporary noise monitor at side-by every quarter. Some people may say, submit OW2 now, deactivate later if actual noise decreases. It's not that simple to identify actual GBAS noise changes. Without help from the FAA and all the airlines, SFO cannot tell which approaches are used. That's why there are no GBAS reports, even though GBAS overlays have been used for over a year. These OW2 tests are much simpler than the Group 1 GBAS United Airlines test because the new tests use existing flights and vectoring. Let's not waste FAA resources when SFO can easily check whether OW2 will increase noise over Palo Alto and prevent a problem. SFO should not submit OW2 to the FAA without running tests beforehand to measure the actual noise impacts at side-by. It's the right approach, no pun intended.
Thank you, Ms. Fremont. Next speaker, please. Mark Shaw, welcome, Mr. Shaw. Could you please unmute him so he could come in?
Thank you, Mark Shaw, Palo Alto. I think the physics behind the overwater GLS 28R concept makes sense. However, this should be field tested before the FAA commits too much time to it. This approach does address a core problem we face on the Mid-Peninsula, which is that planes coming off the surface structure at Eddy are in a very high energy state. They are too high and too fast, which requires speed brakes and aggressive flaps to counter. This is particularly true for newer, efficient planes. But we do have concerns. One of the main ones, as Marie-Jo said, is whether getting rid of the speed constraint at Eddy, but then adding one at Sidby, will eliminate the use of speed brakes or just move where they're deployed. Remember, Surfer 3 eliminated a speed brake zone at 20,000 feet over Monterey Bay, only to create one after Eddy at below 6,000 feet. Also, why isn't this over-energy problem being fixed at its source on Surfer itself for all flights, rather than having to remediate it after the fact? Over-energy on descent, by the way, is essentially in excess of potential energy, altitude, and kinetic energy speed. The plane is too high and too fast. Airplanes counter this using drag, speed brake, and flaps. These are energy transfer devices. They transfer a plane's excess potential and kinetic energy to heat energy, friction, kinetic energy, air movement, and sound energy, noise, lots of noise. OW2 adds track miles to reduce this impact in any one location and moves much of the impact over the bay. That's good, but Surfer should not have over-energy problems in the first place. It just seems broken that the FAA would put scarce resources on this remediation for just a few flights rather than fixing the problem at the source on Surfer for all flights. And whatever is done, please insist that it be field tested thoroughly and with actual airplanes and noise monitors, not just models. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Anyone else, Ms. Gonzalez, on Zoom? That's all the speakers I have on the public. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. We have one? Okay.
We have Darlene Yapley.
Ms. Yapley, good evening and welcome.
What?
Ms. Yapley?
Bear with us a little bit, Ms. Yapley. We're working on technical issues.
Chair Hindi, I don't know where I should be starting, from the top.
Go ahead, start. Yeah, we'll restart the clock. Go ahead, Ms. Yapley. Thank you for your patience.
Can you restart the clock, please? You're taking time off my
No
house.
worry, I'll give you time. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Today, I kindly ask Roundtable members to follow your principle number 3. When considering and taking actions to mitigate noise, will not knowingly or deliberately support, encourage, or adopt actions that result in shifting noise to another community. Please don't sacrifice Palo Alto. Note to FAA, Ms. Garcia and Ms. Chin, Palo Alto is not a Roundtable member and could negatively be impacted by OW2. Per Marie-Jo, OW2 has higher flap settings and a speed restriction at side-by. which could mean more noise as confirmed by an aviation expert. Surfer already has a speed brake problem at side-by. Please don't make it worse and create a new problem. As a dedicated national and local advocate, I have a proven track record supporting communities and roundtables for beneficial noise mitigation legislation and practices. In that spirit, I ask the roundtable to do the right thing. Please do not recommend to SFO to submit OW2. The argument you can deactivate later if actual noise increases is invalid. SFO still can't tell which approaches are being used, but also because SFO uses averages to determine if GBAS approaches increase noise. It will take years to accumulate OW2 data for different aircraft types and airlines, with monitoring 2 weeks per quarter. Due diligence is warranted and feasible today. We want tests, not promises, to keep an eye out for the problem. The OW2 tests are fast, simple, and can reveal for aircraft types and airlines the actual noise. These tests would protect Palo Alto residents who are not part of the roundtable. Tests provide real-life data, not modeling, to substantiate HMH's claim of overall noise reduction from Palo Alto to Redwood City. Do not recommend OW2 to the FAA now. Wait. Recommend SFO to run a dozen tests to measure actual noise impacts at AW2. This is using regular commercial aircraft, not unique testing aircraft. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shapley. Do we have anybody else on Zoom?
Chair, we don't have any more.
Okay, thank you. So last call for members of the public on Zoom. Before I close public comment, I'm not going to open it again. Okay, seeing none. I see Mr. Scholl has his hand up. Is that from the past? New? No. Okay, okay, wonderful. Thank you. So let me close public comment. I'm going to bring it back to the roundtable for discussion, unless anyone has a question before we go discussion. No questions. Member O'Connell, I know you were with me on the technical working group when we had that discussion. Feel free to chime in if you like.
So my question to staff or to the SFO would be, is it possible to run the tests as described by a couple of our call-in members, where they actually do some monitoring of specific flights using this technology prior to a recommendation? Is that something that is possible, an ask of TRACON? I know we don't want to use up too many favors with them, but it seems that if it were possible to run these tests, it might be a wise idea to get that information prior to our recommendation to go ahead.
So if I could maybe take the opportunity to answer that question, I think there's two things that I'd like to answer with. The first is what would be necessary to conduct the test in a similar fashion to what was done when we had United Airlines participate in some evaluation flights with some of their brand new delivery 737 MAX 8 equipment to do some test flights previously. So the level of effort is similar, and that's not to say that it's a huge undertaking. What would be necessary is we do have to encode the approach procedure as you see it there today. And what encoding means is we have to kind of create it in the computerized format that would be loaded into the flight management computer for any of the aircraft that would be participating. The main reason there is the best, most accurate picture that we would get from a real-world flight test is one in which the flight management computer and the flight crew are following the proposed track with the proposed speed limits, etc., exactly as it would be, once the procedure is officially kind of put forward. So specifically in terms of looking at the OW2, there are some steps that would have to be taken to kind of industrialize the procedure just a little bit more, and then put it into the hands of a couple of our willing airline participants, and then coordinate that with air traffic. The next opportunities to do that would be a couple of quarters away potentially. This is something that we're talking about internally here as the project team. We got some feedback from obviously, the city of Palo Alto and some of their residents that raised some of the same concerns previously as they are here tonight. So we are looking at this and trying to figure out when exactly those tests could be done. The second thing I did want to point out, though, is I know that's not on the agenda for tonight, but a few months ago, when we met both with the city of Palo Alto and we've been meeting here with the Roundtable, you may recall that the San Francisco International Airport did submit a letter to the FAA requesting that the FAA and the airlines and the airport all work together to look at those over energy issues that I think Mark Scholl had just commented on, to see if there's a way to solve them, not just through GBAS technology, but through a more all-encompassing approach that could involve changing the arrival procedure, which is not the focus of the GBAS project. And we haven't heard an official feedback just yet from the FAA. We did make that submission, but it is our hope that through that process, if and when it is given the green light to proceed, that we can explore more opportunities for aircraft to make those evaluations with the help of the TRACON. And those evaluations could include the OW2 procedure at that time. One of the challenges we have, though, is that as you are all aware, the point at which our project team would ultimately, and the airport would ultimately make a request for the FAA to develop these procedures that were their concepts tonight. The FAA is not working on them yet, but if you were to authorize us to continue forward and make those requests, it could be several years away still. And in that time frame, there would be opportunities for us to conduct those test flights and do one of two things if those test flights don't work out to the level that we're hoping with the measured noise results. One is we could tweak the procedure before it was finalized and do that with real-time interactions or near real-time interactions with this group and with the residents of Palo Alto. And the other is if it really doesn't work at all during those evaluation period, the SFO can always go back and ask the FAA to stop the production process on the procedure. So I guess my point being is it would take a while to try to get these evaluation aircraft. We do have to work both with participating airlines and the air traffic folks because it has to be loaded into the computer to get it done correctly. That's not impossible. We are hoping that this kind of thing might be explored through the parallel effort that we have requested the FAA to assist with, which is looking at the over energy issues. So that might be a really great time to do these evaluations. And finally, the other point we wanted to raise here is that it might be just in the interest of keeping things within these multi-year timeframes moving. It might be a good idea to consider pushing forward with the OW2, but potentially having that commitment that we would try our best to do those procedures and get the evaluation data as the initial production is put together. Bert, I didn't know if there were other thoughts or comments from the airport side.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. Does that answer your question, Member O'Connor?
I think it gives me some information and does answer a lot of the question. It worries me a bit that they say that we will do our best to get that information and to bring it back in real time. I think that we'd really would like a commitment from SFO to do the tests, not to do their best to have the tests before it gets widely publicized and while we still have a little more control over how those are, so a little more of a specific guarantee of commitment would be a better, in my opinion, and I think it'd be better for Palo Alto.
Yeah.
And the other South Bay communities.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of Mr. Hanna, but I don't know if that is within his power.
You're very kind, and I definitely hear your comments. I didn't know if Bert had other thoughts that he wanted to share potentially.
Well, I believe we can say it is within our power to try and negotiate that, but we'll go and get rid of the feedback. We'll go forward and trying to see what we can do about that. Right now, we're taking lots of notes, and we'll be going back and putting our heads together to see what we can come back.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think it's important to kind of remind us all with your commitment if any of the procedures creates noise, more noise than what we have today, what would be the process and what would be the action?
So I mean, I can speak to that. I mean, if this procedure, let's look at the hypothetical and then the two scenarios. One is the hypothetical situation where all of the procedures that were recommended by the technical working group are voted tonight to continue moving forward, and the airport is able to do these evaluation flights. And the outcome of the evaluation flights is there is a fundamental flaw that we did not see. The physics of some of the aircraft involved in the test might generate more noise. If that is the case, the procedure would not move forward because it's not going to meet our project objectives at that point, not in its current form. So we would stop it at that point and try to modify it. And if the modifications are within the scale of the original request, we would first present what those modifications are to this group and to the technical working group and the public. We would produce new community flight procedure packages to show what the model changes are and how that compared to our real world data. That might mean we need more evaluation flights, potentially, if that's where we get stuck. But it would not move forward into production if that's what the evaluation piece revealed. If the evaluation flights proved to be positive, that they showed some kind of noise reduction, and several years from now, when the FAA is able to finally produce the procedure, it goes into live use, and we find from our real-world portable noise monitoring efforts that it is not meeting the objectives. And this is true for any of the innovative Group 1 procedures or the Group 2A that we're voting on tonight. If any of those procedures from our portable noise monitoring show that the noise objectives are not being achieved, at a minimum, our process is to suspend use of those procedures with air traffic coordination first, but it's a quick process just to say something's not right. We need to pause this. We need to get to the bottom of it. So they won't linger. It's just a pause to try to figure out. So Chair Hindi, I hope that answers your question about the process of what happens if these procedures are found to not meet our project goals.
Okay, thank you. I see Ms. Garcia, Fabiola Garcia has her hand up. Welcome, Ms. Garcia.
Hi, thank you. I just want to follow up on a comment that you made, Paul. You said that you submitted a letter to the FAA, and I know you make reference to working with the FAA. I think that, as Moifer and I are here present in this meeting, it would be helpful to understand and be aware. I would assume that the letter would have been submitted to our office, but maybe it didn't. I'm not recalling this letter, and I would like to get you an answer. If you can forward a copy to me, I would really appreciate that. I think this is an important topic that definitely needs to be addressed. And also, you mentioned that you asked the FAA about this parallel effort. It would be helpful for me to understand who in the FAA are you making these requests of, and also maybe copy Moifer in these requests so we can usher them along as much as possible and get you guys a more timely answer if permissible. I realize we have some, different offices and program management offices that address different topics within the agency. But if you can include us, we'd be happy to help to either expedite or at least provide updates on these inquiries during the roundtables.
Yeah, and Fabi, I appreciate that. Sorry, I just want to jump in. The course that we were asked to take on that was to actually submit a gateway request with the formal letter that was written by the airport. This was done back on, I'm just looking at the email history, the 18th of August. And it was made to Raquel, Moifer, and Joe. And I believe there has been some discussion over and we know this is not a simple issue, right? Like this isn't like a, hey, please make one approach for us. This is a big, complex issue, and it needed a lot of different staff offices and stakeholders to review. We understand there has been some discussion within the FAA. We just haven't gotten an official feedback just yet. And so if there is additional insight your team can share with us tonight or in a future meeting, it's greatly appreciated. We always just so greatly respect how much effort and availability you and all the FAA have made to this commitment to reduce noise in the Bay Area. So thanks, Fabi.
Thank you, Paul. No, I appreciate that. So for clarification, this letter that you referenced was submitted through the gateway, and it was addressed to Raquel, Moifer, and Joe. Okay,
Yep.
That is helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
All righty.
Thank you. I'm glad we clarified that. Paul, I think you touched on it a little bit, but could you tell us how long would this process be with the FAA? Are we talking a year or two, a month or two? What are we talking about?
Again, this is Paul Hanna, a consultant and non-FAA employee, providing insight to this question. The typical timeline right now for the FAA to process a conceptual flight procedure that's put through the gateway at a minimum is 2 years. A minimum. It can absolutely take longer. In the case of this project, even our innovative Group 1 procedures have taken longer than the 2 years that we had anticipated. This happens for all number of reasons. It happens for staff availability. It happens for other safety critical projects that require the limited production slots of the FAA to take advantage of. That's not to say noise is not important, but safety of flight is always first. And so these things can push the timelines out. And that's one of the things that's why we've been so interested in trying to get the feedback from this roundtable about which procedures you're interested in, because we're easily looking at 2 years right now. It could potentially take longer than that, just depending on availability.
Thank you.
So I hope that answers your question, Chair Hindi.
Thank you. So can I have a question in my mind now? So in the interim, during that period of time, if technology provides some solutions or something that could make improvement, is that something that could still be incorporated, or once the ball gets rolling, so to speak, not much of it could be added?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, this is what's happening in real time with some of our innovative Group 1 procedures that have been, unfortunately, a little bit delayed. So, for instance, the GLAS uniform, which is the GLS version of the RNP Yankee procedure. So there's this RNP approach that already goes a little bit out over the water today. We made a recommendation to go after a GLS version of it that had slightly higher altitudes. That procedure, it's taken a little bit longer for the FAA to develop because of some software and criteria issues. But the fact that it's taken a little bit longer meant that some other very positive changes are coming along with it. And one of the waypoints is an example that's used both for the RMP procedure, the one that's there today, and the future GLS. Both of them are going to move out just a little bit further away from the residential area. So there are small benefits that come, even though these things take a long time, and the FAA always tries to find ways to incorporate them, and our project team also looks for them as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So going back to my colleagues here on the round table, any other questions or any further discussion? Member O'Connor.
So we reviewed this in the technical working group, and I was very satisfied with what the team was able to provide to us and the insights and the optimism that these procedures would help. One of the comments from the speakers tonight was that we were authorizing SFO to go ahead. And I think we're just making a recommendation to look at the possibilities that this is a good direction. And we're not shifting noise, we're making authorization for noise shifting. I just would like to.
No, I appreciate your comments, because that definitely was something that I'm going to touch on. We are really, what we are doing, our action, if you look at the motion and the packet, is really supporting the processing rather than approving or authorizing. We're not in a position to approve or authorize, but we are supporting the continued processing of those the GBAS and innovative procedures, and we'll see. Those going to be evaluated, and those going to be tested, and based on that, we will, at that point, if there's any decision on our part to be made. But until we do explore what could be the benefit, technically and now theoretically, there could be benefit. Obviously, that has to be applicable after the testing is being done and so forth. But if we don't go through that step, we will never know. So there's a potential here that we need to pursue. Hopefully, we could get some relief and some less noise in our communities. Okay, Member Schneider.
Hi. This is somewhat akin to what we're trying to do with setting up monitors to get real data from the spectral analysis study on low-frequency noise. For the studies that you're being asked to do for these flights, and I support the Palo Altans in wanting hard data on that, do atmospheric conditions, time of year, time of day, inversion layer, humidity layers, are you taking that into account when you're doing the measurement, since we know for a fact the experience of noise for the close-in communities is very dependent on a range of variables. So if you're doing the study that you're doing and you're only looking at one time of day, one time of year, and the weather's always the same, you'll get one set of data. So I guess I'm encouraging you that you collect your data over varying, what's the right term?
Periods of time.
Well, it's periods of times, but it's humidity. It was only last year that we learned that an inversion layer significantly changes the noise experience here close in, whereas I knew that from the amphitheater in Mountain View and the experience in Palo Alto. So how to take in all those variables and just make sure if you're going to do the extra studies, try to get it, maybe there's a nighttime, maybe there's a daytime, maybe there's a heat wave, maybe there's a thing like that.
In answer to your question, we'll be running for a 2-week window typically, and possibly longer. And that window of time will encompass varying times of day, weather conditions, and so on and so forth. And as we progress through the period of time doing this, we'll find that we are covering most bases.
I hope so. I'm going to bring this up because in our discussion for the ground-based noise monitoring, we had been hoping to do Labor Day weekend, which for typically is almost our hotter time of the year, the stiller air, often an inversion layer. We didn't get the monitors chosen for all 3 cities. So we can do it in the springtime, but the humidity level in the spring is very different than it is in the fall. So I think you're going to have to get some seasonality in that too. Just if you're going to do the data, do the work, collect a broad range of times of year, seasonal data.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Okay, if there's any further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adopt the technical working group recommendation again to support the continued processing of the SFO ground-based augmentation system, GBAS Group 2 innovative procedures. As outlined, there's our 6 procedures as outlined in the packet.
I'll second to explore.
You'll move? Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay, we got Pranita moving and Terry seconding. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion and for the questions. Moving on, I'm going to item number 5 on our agenda, Chairman's update. As you know, former Roundtable Administrative Secretary Angela Montes has moved on to her new position. And next week interviews will be held for her replacement for an initial pool of about, are you ready for this, all of you in the cities? 40 applicants. I don't know what the county does.
Wow.
But to get 40 applicants, our cities have been trying to get 5 applicants for an opening. We can't. So kudos for the county. No, seriously. 40 applicants. That's amazing.
Wow.
And in another personnel change, Lisa Awazasa, Deputy Director of Planning and Building for the County of San Mateo, is taking her well-deserved retirement on January 6th. I believe after 35 years, Lisa. Congratulations.
Yes, bravo.
Ms. Awazasa has been the liaison between the Roundtable staff and the county, running interference for staff and advocating for Roundtable needs. You will be missed. We wish you all the best. And if you would like to say a few words, please come on up to the microphone. Thank you.
That's a lot of years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. Let's see. Bless her heart.
I think I have it now? Okay.
I hear you.
Oh, I just wanted to say I've really enjoyed working with this group and getting to know some of you and getting to know this topic. That's actually fascinating. And I wanted to make sure that you know you'll be in good hands. We're going to be, our Planning Services Manager, Bharat Singh, is going to be taking over on my behalf. And he comes to us to San Mateo County after working at Santa Clara County, where he was staff to the Airport Land Use Commission. So he's familiar with some of the work that you folks are doing, and I think you'll be in good hands. But anyway, just wanted to say thank you, and
thank you very much. And again, congratulations on your retirement, and best of luck in your next chapter.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, and next item on my update is I want to thank Maria Gonzalez, who stepped up to help us in our meeting here tonight. Thank you, Maria. And also, of course, thank you for your help on the technical working group meeting. You did a wonderful job there. Thank you again. Next item on my update is a TRACON tour, which was held on October 26th. We had a couple of last-minute cancellation from planned attendees, so it was a small group, but I think a very enthusiastic group. I was joined by members Mark Adiego, member Terry O'Connell, member Cecilia Taylor, and Robin Pang Managaris, and Kathleen Wentworth. We were pleased to tour the working control stations, the controller training room, and to participate in a briefing by FAA Controller Than McLeod. Ms. McLeod, who is the manager of airspace and procedures for Northern California TRACON, was quite generous with her time and deep knowledge of Bay Area space. It was an opportunity to learn about the challenges facing controllers in our crowded airspace, as well as to make known the impact to our residents, especially at night, of non-safety vectoring for efficiency. What that means is giving airplanes shortcuts over houses. So we'll make sure that they understand that and how intrusive it is and disruptive to our residents. At night, we had hoped to hear from FAA Western Pacific Region Team Manager Joe Burt at tonight's meeting on this topic for possible expansions of the hours of operation of the nighttime noise abatement departure. But it seems like there is still some more work to be done internally by the FAA on this issue. Hopefully we could hear back from Mr. Burt on our February meeting. For those of you who were not here during the discussion of the night hush, that is, we started this program with the FAA between the hours of, with limited hours, with the intention of expanding them as we go through the time. And that's where the FAA is currently evaluating what could that be. So hopefully we will hear back from Mr. Burt in February meeting. At the recent American Association of Executive Airport News Conference, Roundtable consultant Gene Rindale was honored with the Randy Jones Award for Excellence in Airport Noise Mitigation Abatement and Management for his more than 20 years of contribution to the industry. I understand this is a really prestigious award, Gene, so congratulations. Not many people get it, and those who do are really special. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's my report. Anyone has any questions on the Chairman update? Seeing none, thank you very much. Move on to item number 7, the Airport Director update. Mr. Sotero, as you know, as you can see actually, is unable to join us tonight, but in his place, alternate and SFO Public Information Officer Doug Yeagle, who will give us an update, followed by report from SFO Assistant Chief Financial Officer and Acting Airport Controller Kevin Cohn, followed by a report from Aircraft Noise Office Manager Bert Ganong. Mr. Yeagle, welcome, and please.
Thank you, Chair Hindi. Just 3 items for tonight before I turn it over to Kevin Cohn. First of all, update on passenger traffic at SFO. We just finished the Thanksgiving holiday travel season, and we saw passenger activity that was about 93% of what we saw pre-pandemic, 93% of what we saw Thanksgiving of 2019. So we continue to close that gap. We also continue to see a lag between passengers and flight operations, because for that same period, the number of flights we operated was about 88% of the same period in 2019, so we continue to see very strong recovery. We also like to brief you on new airline service coming to SFO. December 16th, we have a new airline coming to SFO from Taipei. It's called Starlux. They'll be launching 3 flights a week from Taipei to San Francisco. It arrives at 6:15 p.m. and departs at 11:40 p.m. It's an Airbus A350. And then a Canadian low-cost carrier, Porter, has announced plans to launch service from SFO to Toronto on January 25th. They'll arrive at SFO at 1:22 p.m. and depart at 10:46 p.m. They're going to be operating an Embraer 195 aircraft. And then lastly, in the October meeting, Ivar talked about a runway closure that we plan to begin in January to facilitate a taxiway improvement project. And we're still on track to begin that closure of runway 28 left on January 16th, but there has been a change in the phasing of the project. As Ivar reported to you in October, originally our plan was to suspend the work Memorial Day weekend through the summer and then resume it after Labor Day weekend. With feedback from the airlines, there's been a request for us to do this project continuously. In other words, once we begin it, to just keep going until it's done. And we're going to go down that route. And now the plan is to begin the closure on January 16th, work continuously, and the plan is to reopen the runway no later than July 1st. So we will have about a month of summer travel when we have this runway closure, but by the time we really hit the peak of our summer activity, Independence Day weekend, we'll have all of our runways available to us again. And airlines are continuing to make modifications to their flight schedule during this period to mitigate some of the potential delay impact. But the net effect is one of the two primary runways we have for landing will be closed. So what that does to our arrival rate is going to be very similar to what we see on a bad weather day. Okay, it'll take our arrival rate from roughly a peak of 54 to about 30. So that's why airlines are looking to adjust their flight schedule. I would stress that this won't have any change in how aircraft fly, how they take off or depart from SFO. The flight patterns will remain the same. It's just mainly that delay impact that we're looking to mitigate. And that's it for my portion. I'll turn it over to Kevin Cohn now. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Kevin Cohn, I'm the Assistant Chief Financial Officer for the San Francisco Airport. Roundtable members, thank you for having me here tonight. Pleased to present our fiscal year 2021 economic impact that we conducted during the two main years during COVID. Let's see. So just by way of the background for myself, I want to emphasize that I am not an economist. My background is in finance, and as you're going through this presentation and you're thinking about questions, if I'm not able to answer those questions, we'll try to jot down your questions and we'll get back through answers back to you via the staff. This presentation was developed by an outside consultant who's been doing the economic impact here at San Francisco Airport for about the last 15 years. They do use, they're out of Boston, Massachusetts, but they do use resources here in the Bay Area, and one of them is the Bay Area Bay Area Council Economic Institute. So what's really unique about this economic impact that we do every 2 years is this one looked at job centers, the facilitation of visitors, and moving cargo. And as you can imagine, during COVID, moving cargo is one of the most critical operations for all of the United States. Anecdotally, when there was no people in the terminals, what we saw is we saw airlines that were loading boxes of cargo into the interior of the aircraft. So they were putting in the seats to lift cargo out of the Bay Area and bring cargo back into the Bay Area. And I'll have a couple slides on that, why that was significant. As I said, in years past, we would look at a year. The last time we did this was in 2018. But with this economic impact, we decided to look at years 2020 and 2021 together. So it's a kind of a unique study that we're doing. So this is probably what most of you already know. This is a pictorial of the traffic at San Francisco Airport. You can see in the 2019, we had ups and downs for a couple years, but you can see on the chart in March or April of 2020 was when the world came to a halt. I will tell you that that was the day where we went through the international terminal and it was so quiet, you could hear the hum from the fluorescent lights, and I had never heard that in the history of my career. It was a very daunting, eerie feeling that air traffic had come to a stop. As you can see in the slide, as we progressed throughout for the next year, we really didn't start climbing out to air travel returning until about February 2021. Does anyone have an idea of why February 2021 we might have seen some growth? Exactly. And with that, San Francisco Airport moved, as you remember, so everyone wanted to travel. One of the first destinations that opened up, but you had to have a test, was Hawaii. SFO was the first airport in the United States to create in-terminal testing so that you could get your test at SFO and get on a plane and go to Hawaii. And that's when air travel started to come back. People could find ways to travel and bring money back to the Bay Area, back to the airlines on their way in and out of San Francisco Airport. So I think that the really interesting thing, I just went through the results of this just in the last couple days. You would think that during COVID, where SFO lost 96% of our traffic, literally overnight, that it would have been devastating economically, the impact economically to the Bay Area. And what's really interesting here is you look on the bar charts on the left, which is 2018, 2020, and 2021 as the green one. Despite the big drop in traffic, SFO was still able to provide significant economic impact to the Bay Area. And I think that that's really a testament of what it produces for not just the 28,000 employees that work at the airport, but what I'll get into is the multiplier effect to all the cities on the peninsula and the 9 Bay Area counties in California, in this Bay Area. Labor incomes still held pretty steady, even though we had the pandemic. And the revenue dropped from the previous 2 years, but still was pretty good. And what I attribute to that to, when I started looking at this data, is this is proof that the stimulus monies that came from the federal government is really translated into this economic impact. And let me give an one-for-one example. We were able to receive $460 million from the federal government for SFO. What we did with that money is we kept everybody employed. And so this is, again, a direct signal that when we keep people employed and they have money to spend, they spend in the community and the restaurants and buying goods, that is the multiplier effect that you'll see in this. So again, the stimulus money was good for, not only did airports get them, airlines got them, cities got them, it was spread throughout the community. So where were the impacts? Here in the first column, you see employment. The next one is labor in the billions, revenue in the billions, and the change. So on the on-airport activity, you can see in fiscal year 2021, the height of the impact, significant drop, 43% drop from our previous economic impact. Air cargo, not as much because of what I just said. We were shipping cargo out of the seats of airplanes. Visitor spending, obvious, right? Nobody was coming, nobody was traveling, everyone was staying home. But the total impact, I say, employment still, we still created 186,000 jobs in fiscal year 2021. And overall, the revenue change was about a 30% drop in revenue on the economic impact of the Bay Area. This is something that is something that we hadn't presented before, and we decided to try this in this economic impact. It's a concept called value added. And again, it wasn't in our last economic impact reports. And what value added is the value of the product minus the value of the purchased materials and services used in production. And what we're trying to show here is, as you can see the little graphic we here using a $100 bill, where is the money being allocated when it's being economically impacted in the Bay Area? There's a portion of it that goes to local taxes, cities, counties. Part of it goes to labor income. But the big part of it that is induced by the work at the airport through travel is the cost of purchase goods and services. And so those are all the businesses at the airport that are buying supplies and goods to run their businesses at the airport, and that's impacting the 9 Bay Area counties. So this next slide shows you where are the jobs happening. The bulk of the jobs is the passenger airlines. The people that work for the airlines, servicing the airlines. The next largest one is in our construction field. We still continued the construction at the airport during the COVID time. We stopped some projects and put them on hold, but things that were underway, we moved to complete those. Ground transportation, aviation support, and freight. Those are the handlers that put the bags on the plane, the people that clean the airplanes. So this is just a pictorial of where these direct employment jobs are happening. Here's the economic footprint. I think what's really impressive here, you can see the multiplier effect. This is in the billions of dollars. Revenues on the airport generate $6.1 billion of economic impact. Off the airport, $45 billion. Labor income, $3 billion on the airport. Off the airport, $16 billion. And employment, I think, is the biggest one. Not only do we have 28,000 jobs at the airport, but look at the number of 157,000 jobs are induced from the employment just that we have on the airport. This is an interesting one. The visitors arriving for 2018, 2020, and 2021. The first 2 rows show the employments, and you can see it dropped off in fiscal year 21 dramatically. I think the data down below, the percentage of visitors from California, interestingly, went up during COVID. I could only guess that people maybe wanted to visit family members within California, but that was an interesting phenomenon that people were traveling from California in the state. The next one was percentage of visitors from other domestic origins. That was pretty steady for the few passengers that were flying. And then the last one obviously was the world was basically shut down internationally, so you can see a dramatic decrease in international traffic, people starting from other destinations and coming to San Francisco. This next slide is the passenger spending, and in the first column is on average passengers are spending about $1,270 per passenger, and as you move to the right for the 2020, not much of a drop because that was only the first 3 months of the quarters of the year. COVID had not been in full swing yet, but you can see in 2021, passenger spending dropped precipitously to about $900 per passenger. We don't have the data back yet for 2023, but we understand that it is on the rise. This next slide is the off-airport spending from visitors arriving into SFO for these 2 years. And so it just, again, shows the effects of employment, labor income, and revenue. And you can see in 2021, if you compare the 2 right columns, the revenue during the pandemic significantly decreased in each of those 3 categories. As I alluded to in my opening remarks, air cargo. Really, air cargo during the peak of COVID really is what sustained the airline industry and kept us going as an airport. You can see here that even during COVID, in fiscal year 2021 for us, there was still 115,000 jobs moving cargo because of COVID. It produced $13 billion in labor income and $37 billion in revenue for the industry. And again, everything was hard to get, and things were being flown in and flown out to get also from the Bay Area to destinations that needed it, and things that we needed flew into San Francisco. What is it that was being imported and exported? Electronics. Really, SFO is really an electronics cargo airport. We're not a big, heavy airport. If you look on the upper end, we imported electronics with 75% of it during fiscal year 2021, and we exported 50% of our exports were electronics. What's going on there, talking to some of the people that in the industry, we're producing wafer chips in the Silicon Valley The wafer chips are being shipped to Asia to produce a lot of the products that you have, such as your cell phones, and then the produced phones are coming back to the Bay Area via these aircraft. On the domestic side, down below, you can same thing. Even domestically, electronics coming in, electronics coming out. As well as we have a category there, pharmaceuticals, so you can imagine we're moving vaccines and a lot of medical pharmaceuticals throughout the United States. A lot of our biotech companies are right here, as you know, in South San Francisco and Foster City. My last slide, this is just a slide to, again, summarizes even deeper into what's coming in and out of San Francisco Airport. As I mentioned, cargo is the lion's share of what we ship, but you can go all the way down the road to, you know, we are supporting all industries in the Bay Area. So thank you very much for your time. I would welcome your questions, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Sure, okay. I was going to take all the questions together, but let's go ahead and do it. Member Ford.
Thank you. I just have one question on the economic footprint on and off airports.
Yes.
I understand that the multiplier effect, that if you have people come in and do construction, they need lunch, they need gas, all that. But what I didn't understand was employment. How does that translate to the multiplier? I didn't get that part. Could you explain it?
And I don't know the answer to that question, but we will get you an answer.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Member Schneider.
Thank you. Couple of questions. With cargo pre-COVID, there was cargo at SFO,
Yes.
and then it grew during COVID
Yes.
to augment or to fill in the gaps. Now that passengers are coming back, are there just simply more flights? So there's passenger flights coming back plus cargo?
So the cargo, they're no longer putting boxes in the cabin.
Okay.
So you know, since largely the supply chain issue is still correcting itself, we have increase in cargo, but not at the spike that we had seen during the height of the pandemic. And I'll give you one example. Before the pandemic, Amazon Air did not operate at San Francisco Airport. Just before the pandemic, they started service. Today, I think they have, Doug, you might know better than me, either 2 or 3 flights a day. And really, for those of you who are Amazon Prime members, that is what they're doing. They are bringing distribution from Vegas and other locations literally in one day. Amazon Prime one day is not offered throughout the United States. It's really where there's large hub airports. So you have additional cargo aircraft coming in, not necessarily more commercial aircraft. They've pretty much gone back to moving their belly cargo, is what we call it, that goes in the belly, and mail.
So you're referring to the fact that the fulfillment center opened in South San Francisco. So it started feeding and taking from the fulfillment center.
I don't know the Amazon
Okay, so
logistics.
my other part of the question is, do most of those cargo flights go during day, evening, or night?
Night.
Most are night, correct?
Night.
Are most at night?
Yeah, I defer to Bert.
Into night.
And quite often between midnight and 3 a.m., because I hear them all on that. All right, then, does the airport track any direct?
And they're all vector.
This is all kind of trickle down?
Sure.
On that, are there any direct relationships? I will tell you from Millbrae, our hotels are very much linked to passengers in and out of SFO and very much linked to Asian traffic. So our hotels were one of the last to recover compared to the other hotels that got California traffic. And we monitor this because 20 to 25% of our income is hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very linked to the airport with that. But does the airport make any direct payments to any other cities or to the county of San Mateo?
We do not.
You do. You actually do. You'll be getting a Public Records Act request on which direct payments go to the county from various forms, whether it's a fuel surcharge, the hotel tax at the Hilton, or possibly some sales tax. We're just trying to discover that information.
Okay.
And it's nothing about the airport, it's really about the county.
Thank you.
So just be aware that we're watching. And it is a problem that this shift to cargo, the act of an Amazon fulfillment center, is immediately impacting the people of Millbrae, Burlingame, and Hillsborough between midnight and 3 a.m. So if there's anything that we can do, those cargo flights should not be disrupting people's sleep. They should be coming during evening or day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to clarify when you asked me the question about are we making payments to entities, we can make payments to entities and counties if they're providing a service back to San Francisco. We cannot just provide a subsidy payment because of the FAA revenue diversion law. So the answer is yes. We make payments to the city of San Francisco for direct services. So if there's a circumstance where we're getting direct services from San Mateo County, yes, we do make payments. So I want to clarify when I said
I understand.
but
The problem with these models
Yes.
is that they show the regional benefit when a handful of cities and a smaller subset of population bear the brunt of the noise pollution, the air pollution, and for 4 of my neighborhoods, the fuel spills on that. And that is not recognized and will start to be recognized. Because we are carrying the price for your profit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Cohn, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much for your presentation. And, rightfully so here in the roundtable, we always kind of discuss noise and so forth. But thank you for reminding us all of the economic benefit that SFO brings to the region, the entire region, not just San Mateo County and San Francisco. And as you have detailed in your presentation, it really goes beyond just what we see in the numbers as what created. So much appreciated. And again, it's a reminder for all of us that SFO is a major employer, major factor in our economic engine in the Bay Area. So thank you again for taking the time. All right, Bert, I guess to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Let me cue up our presentation here. Get a little too close, it doesn't like me and starts to feedback. Okay. All right. Here. All right. So, in this month's roundtable items, our typical task items, the Noise Office website updates, we are keeping that done. Being able to do that regularly, and we'll continue to do so. The GBAS, as you know, the question and answers have been updated. We've been updating our community flight procedure packets as well, and those are posted on the website. We still ask that you submit any concept procedures and questions via the email address sfo.gbas@flysfo.com. Do not email staff directly, please. And ambient noise calculations. We've had quite a few members of the public asking us about the ambient noise levels and how those are calculated. And we have been working with our service provider for our system, EnviroSuite, and we looked into it. We had been using level equivalent, or LEQ, and it is basically a way to do it with a, it would be a better way to explain it. It's an average of the energy. And we shifted over to L90, which basically is looking at the noise 90% of the time. And so it's more of a statistical average. And we noticed that the ambient levels dropped. So be on the lookout for that starting third quarter 2020. And you'll see lower ambient noise levels for most areas.
Electric vehicles.
At our August 3rd, 2016 roundtable meeting, United became the first airline in the United States to commit to retrofitting their aircraft with the airflow deflectors or weak vortex generators. And I see Mr. Wamby. Well, yeah. But the nice thing about it is, if you go on our website and look, we definitely have some high numbers of airlines that have gotten to 100%. And of the 10 operators, we have soon to have 7. And United has gone through the retrofit process, not just replacing and purchasing new aircraft with their pre-equipped. They have actually done the work of retrofitting 179 different Airbus A319 and A320s. I want to thank this gentleman here, Glenn Morris. Some of you who've been on the Roundtable for a while may recall seeing him in the audience. He was their, he was the director of industry affairs, and he was very instrumental in doing this. And I have to take credit for bending his ear on many occasions, driving him over here to the meetings. And I'm sure that's where he bent and got a hold of management at United and got them to go ahead and do the process. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. And he deserves a big round of applause from you. During the last meeting, I mentioned that we had a increase of approximately 80 homes in our expanded eligibility program. And Member Schneider asked me, rightfully so, where did that come from? And so I was not able to, at the time, state why, and I said I would come back with the answer. I do have that answer. I spoke with our noise insulation program people, and they informed me that the expanded eligibility allows for looking at homes. The easements were executed before December 31st of 1992. And after my looking at those numbers and reporting what was given to me, I found out that they said, all right, we're gonna go and look, because we discovered that some of those easements were recorded into 1993. But the homes were actually completed in 1992 before December 31st. So when they went back and looked, they realized that there were more homes. That's where that came from. And if you look at the circle graph on there, you'll see the expanded eligibility for those homes, the 529 homes. You will notice that there's one in Daly City, 56 in Millbrae that are potentially eligible, 76 in San Bruno, and 396 in South City. Now, proceeding on with the noise insulation program update, the repair and replacement initiative. This is the one that basically the airport's taking on to replace items that are failing. And we've been tracking nicely with that. You'll see at the bottom the satisfaction rates increased. Most of the homes right now are currently in South San Francisco, although San Bruno has some. The Second Chance Initiative, that's where we're able to give homeowners that missed on the first time around. So either somebody purchased it after the fact, or for some reason the home was, did not want to participate, is still within the noise conduit. That's progressing well. The potentially eligible properties is going down. We have units out for contract selection and units in construction. So that's positive progress there. And the expanded eligibility, I touched that on that in the beginning, answering the question from Member Schneider from the last meeting. And we have quite a bit of information here. It hasn't changed from the last time, so we'll go ahead and leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your report. And let me kind of add my thanks to United Airlines for concluding the Vortex program. For those of you who don't know, this is specific for the Airbus airplanes. They had this distinct, like, whistling noise right behind them, and it was pretty disturbing in a way, or
3
noisy.
to 6 decibels. It's basically a tonal noise, much like if you blew across the top of a Coke bottle, that ooh, that type of a sound.
Yeah.
And it has 4 of those, 2 under each wing, holes that as it gets into a certain angle of attack, the wind goes across it and makes a howling noise. They put a little angular device in front of it, and it disrupts the airflow enough that it doesn't do that.
Yeah, and United did that voluntarily on their own dime. They didn't have to do it, really, so kudos to them. And you mentioned also Mr. Morse, who was instrumental in doing that, so I definitely have my thanks to them. Doug, you mentioned the closure of 28 left, and is there an impact, like, on the flights coming in? They're going to be done later just because you're operating on one runway, or is it going to be another runway that will be handling the loss of 28 left?
So essentially what will happen is all aircraft, under a normal West plan, all aircraft will land on 28 right. So it'll essentially, in terms of our arrival rate, it'll replicate the kind of conditions we see on a bad weather day.
So the day will be long?
Well, and
They will be longer eventually till all the arrival flights?
Airlines are currently adjusting their flight schedules to mitigate the delay impact or to reduce it. What we're hoping to achieve is something where approximately 30% of flights experience delays of 30 minutes or less. So the airlines and the FAA are currently working through that process of making schedule reductions to essentially right-size the flight operations to the reduced runway capacity.
Very good, thank you. And one more time, I want to thank the SFO and Mr. Cohn for his report. Really, that was a good presentation, I think, from all of us. I'm going to open it up for members for any questions or comments on the presentation from SFO. Yes, Member Schneider.
Two sets of questions. You talked about the new Taiwan flights. Yay for tourism, especially for those of us close in, but they're all leaving in the evening or the night departure frame. In the olden days, we used to talk about the program SFO had to encourage airlines to fly during day and evening. Are we still trying that? Because those flights are going to get pushed into that magic midnight to 3 o'clock, which has become pretty hellish.
We're definitely asking that they do that. Our folks that are with the international group for asking for new carriers, they definitely are doing that. I know the gentleman personally that does a lot of that, and they do. But the thing about it is the way the airline schedules are set, they can't always do it.
I do pay attention when IBAR tells all the new airlines and the times, and most of them seem to be leaving during day, coming in during day and leaving during day. But if this is the new, then we need to know. And then your comment when you said that these are bad weather flights, to me that means arrivals on 1 and departures on 19. Did you mean that or just delays?
No, what I meant was that the runway closure would replicate the type of reduced arrival capacity that we would see on a bad weather day. But I also mentioned that I'm talking about a West plan type of configuration.
Okay, so we are not going to see more 19 departures and 1 arrivals unless there's actual bad weather.
If weather conditions require the airport to go onto a southeast plan, then essentially what you'd have is all departing aircraft leaving on 10 left. So you'd have a single runway for departures, and you'd continue to use 19 left and right for arrivals.
Okay, that's good. Question to Bert then. Your slides, I didn't see them in the packet. Could we get those slides?
Yes, ma'am. Typically, the slides from the director's office and mine are delivered after the fact.
Okay, great, because definitely want to look at those. The 58 houses that you mentioned in Millbrae, are those second chance, meaning they didn't get done back in the 90s, or ones that got, or 56?
Our expanded eligibility.
Can you define that again for me? Because a lot of those windows that were put in in 1990, 90, 91, 92 failed?
The second chance program, if they're within the contour, it would actually, yes, we're supposed to be within the contour, but the second chance initiative will take the people who are asking, although that program is full right now, from my understanding, correct, Correct? Please. Yeah, turn on.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, once again, my name is Gerardo Fries. I'm with the Noise Insulation Program. Just to clarify, the Second Chance initiative refers to insulation of properties that are inside the 65 decibel contour and were never insulated before. And the expanded eligibility initiative refers to re-insulation of properties that were insulated in previous phases of the noise insulation program, specifically before 1993. And the FAA allows us to go back to those homes and do certain things to confirm eligibility, and if so, we can then re-insulate them. Now, the slide in question that refers to 50-some properties in Millbrae, if I recall correctly, that refers to the expanded eligibility, because for the second chance, most, if not all, of the properties in Millbrae, as well as in most of the other communities, have already been insulated. We still identify a few that are potentially eligible, but after numerous attempts at reaching out to homeowners, a lot of them have not responded. And so we're moving forward with focusing on the ones that responded, and then now getting grants for the expanded eligibility. I don't know if that answers the question.
Actually, I believe your question was regarding the repair or replacement initiative.
Well, that falls back to, it is my understanding, under the second chance or the replacement, it's under the current 65 decibels, not under the past decibels that were under stage 3 or 2 engines, which included homes all the way up past here and up into the hillside. So are we still just looking at the current 65 decibels? Because the last time I checked the map, that's only 3 homes in Millbrae, period. So to hear that there's 52, 54, I need to see a new contour map. And that is before they started taking into account low-frequency noise in back of the airplanes. So something's happened, and that sounds good, but I don't know what it is. And we can talk offline on this, because I don't think it's going to affect Burlingame. Burlingame homes were never within a 65 decibel back, or were they way back in the 70s or 80s?
Burlingame elected not to participate.
Okay. See, I wasn't, I mean, I grew up here, so I'm just curious, because the house I live in did have its windows swapped out and insulated in 91, I think.
And just
But we're not in the 65 decibel anymore.
And just to clarify, just one more point, all the initiatives that the airport is conducting right now, repair, replacement, or second chance, or expanded eligibility, all of them only apply to homes in the current 65 decibel contour.
The good news, Councilwoman DiGiovanni, is that you have a number of Daly City homes that were insulated and have failed because they call me. So if you find your residents under the gap departure that have had windows fails, which means moisture's gotten in and is taking away the wood. That's what happened at my house. It rotted all of the framing on the first floor that I had to replace. So this is good news for your residents.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your response. Anybody else got any questions or comments on the presentation from SFO? Okay, saying none, thank you again, everyone from SFO. And moving on to item number 7, Subcommittee's update. I have the technical working group that met on November 15th, and we already covered the item that we talked about, the GBAS innovative procedures. There was another item on the agenda, but we did not get to it because of the time it took us to evaluate the GBAS innovative procedures, which was Mr. Ganong overview of Bay Area flight tracks and review data and director's report. So that would be postponed, that got postponed till January 18th, technical working group meeting. Hopefully we'll get that to that board. Thanks for being patient with us, but the GBAS, I think, was important. At this point, Ms. Gonzalez, would you please share the list of attendees on the Zoom? Share the list of attendees. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open public comments for items 5 through 7 on presentations. And for members of the public who would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand and you will be recognized and you will be sent a message to unmute your speaker and proceed. Those who are on the phone, please press *9. And Ms. Gonzalez, do we have anyone from the public have their virtual hand raised?
Through the chair, hi, there is nobody on Zoom with their virtual hand raised.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We have no public comments on the presentation. Then moving on to number 8, communication announcement. Is there any members who would like to share anything with us or staff would like to share anything, announcement? Yes, Member Schneider.
This is more a request to bring in February, the new legislation that the Flight Quiet Caucus has introduced, because they're similar to the ones that Congresswoman Spear did, but they're different on that. And I haven't gotten all the information on that. But if we could get an update, I was hoping Al would be here tonight and we could get that cleared up ahead of time. But I'd love to see the new ones, because there's one specific to the insulation program and SFO.
Noted. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you. So that brings us to item number 9, which is the adjournment. Yes, and I have some sad news to share with you. Peter Grace of Brisbane died last Saturday when a car collided with Peter while riding his bicycle. Most of you know that Peter has been devoted and highly educated advocate on airplane noise impact on residents for many years, benefiting not only his Brisbane community, but also all of us here at the Roundtable. Peter could always be counted on to do thorough research, collaborate, educate us, and effectively advocate for his finding. He will be missed, and I'm going to ask Ms. O'Connell if she would like to say a few words about Mr. Grace. He's from your city.
Thank you. Peter was so smart, and he was an advocate for everything with schools and parks and public health and safety. He had a passion for airport noise, and he will be missed by his family, his community, and so many others. It's really a tragedy, and all of our hearts go out to his family and the community. But thank you.
Thank you for sharing your words. And with that, I would like to adjourn the meeting in honor of Mr. Peter Grace. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
No, I was just going to say through the chair, could you please also close in memory of Don Horsley, Supervisor Horsley, through the chair, because I know you know a lot about him.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. Say it again.
Supervisor Don Horsley.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So let's then go ahead and close in honor of both Peter Grace and Supervisor Don Horsley, who was a dedicated public servant. And for those of you who have known Don, he had many legacies that he has left from his many decades of service through the sheriff and then through the county and many other places. But for me, knowing Don, it was really that human being that he was. He was someone special who was kind, yet firm when it was needed, but he was a very kind person. He definitely, that, for me, his legacy is the great human being that he was, in addition, of course, to all the stuff that he has done in public service. So with that, in honor of both Mr. Peter Grace and Supervisor Don Horsley, we will adjourn. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we start in Daly City.